Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Sabah al khair, and welcome to CPSA's Daily Morning Assembly.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير ربي أسألك خير ما في هذا اليوم وخير ما بعده وأعوذ بك من شر هذا اليوم وشر ما بعده ربي أعوذ بك من الكسل وسوء الكبر ربي أعوذ بك من عذاب في النار وعذاب في القبر. We have reached the morning, and at this very time unto Allah belongs all authority, and all praises for Allah. None has the right to be worshipped except Allah alone without partner. To Him belongs all control and praise, and He is over all things powerful. My Lord, I ask you for the good of this day and the good of what follows it, and I take refuge in you from the evil of this day and the evil of what follows it. My Lord, I take refuge in you from laziness and senility. My Lord, I take refuge in you from torment in the fire and punishment in the grave. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. In the name of Allah, with whose name nothing is harmed on earth nor in the heavens, and He is the all-seeing, the all-knowing. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد نبيا. I am pleased with Allah as the Lord, and Islam as a religion, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam as a prophet. اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. O Allah, I ask you for beneficial knowledge, goodly provision, and acceptable deeds. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan for the recitation and translation. Just today's meetings, book club for 6th and 7th grade girls with Miss Mackenzie during study hall room 205. There is junior high math and science tutoring. Miss Amina Khan is not doing it, but her sub will be doing it. So any student needing the junior high math and science tutoring, report to room 202 after school. Robotics meeting with Brother Farid. There is a middle school debate orientation today after Asr in room 510. High school math and physics tutoring with Dr. Mansouri. Elementary basketball practice today in the gym in the original building. High school boys basketball playoff game is today, first round against IFS at 5:30. Please come and support the team, support our boys going into their playoffs. Inshallah, they come home with a win. And lastly, for today's announcements, as we did yesterday, we'll be doing for the rest of the month, National Honor Society will be speaking on prominent African Americans. So today I have Zain Chima, and Saad Wahab, that will be presenting on Thurgood Marshall. Let me just get you to the stream, gentlemen. And here you go.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We're with the NHS. My name is Zain. This is Saad, and we'd like to do a little presentation on Thurgood Marshall, who was a Supreme Court justice all the way back in the 1960s.
Early life. Thurgood Marshall was born on July 2nd, 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland. His father was William Marshall. He was a grandson of an enslaved person who worked as a steward. His mother was Norma, a kindergarten teacher. His father's favorite pastime was listening to court cases and rehashing these arguments with his sons. Thurgood later credited these family discussions as being influential in his involvement in law.
Thurgood Marshall attended Baltimore's Colored High School and Training School and was an above-average student and a star debater. He memorized the entire U.S. Constitution as a punishment from a teacher from misbehaving in class. Marshall went on to attend Lincoln University, where he graduated in 1930, along with distinguished student body, including Kwame Nkrumah, Langston Hughes, and Cab Keller. Despite being qualified, Marshall was rejected by the University of Maryland Law School because of his race, which helped shape the future of his career. Marshall attended law school at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where he fell under the tutelage of civil rights lawyer Charles Houston, who was a strict professor. Marshall graduated magna cum laude from Howard in 1933, and he briefly attempted to establish his own practice in Baltimore, which failed due to a lack of experience.
Now we go on to the beginnings of his civil rights career. Marshall began working for the Baltimore branch of the NAACP in 1934, and in 1936 he moved to New York City to work full-time as a legal counsel for the NAACP. Over several decades, Marshall argued and won many important cases to strike down legalized racism. His work helped inspire the American civil rights movement.
Thurgood Marshall has a plethora of notable and important court cases under his belt. One of the most important ones was Murray v. Pearson, in which Marshall and Charles Houston defended Donald Murray, who was denied entrance to the University of Maryland Law School. This case was the first in a string of cases designed to undermine the legal basis for segregation in the United States. Another very prominent case was Smith versus Allwright, in which the Supreme Court strikes down the Democratic Party of their use of whites-only primary elections in southern states. Brown v. Board of Education was a landmark in the history of the Supreme Court, in which Marshall challenges the doctrine of separate but equal, and wins a unanimous ruling that racial segregation of public schools is inherently unconstitutional. Brown v. Board established Marshall as one of the most successful and prominent lawyers in American history, and provided the legal foundation and inspiration for the American Civil Rights Movement.
Following this, he expands his career and becomes judges, eventually reaching the Supreme Court. So let's start off with the beginning. In 1961 to 65, he was appointed by President John F. Kennedy to serve as a circuit court judge for 4 years and issued over 100 decisions, none of which was overturned by the Supreme Court. After that, he was appointed as U.S. Solicitor General by President Lyndon B. Johnson. He won 14 of the 19 cases he argued before the Supreme Court during his 2 years as Solicitor General. After this, however, he became a Supreme Court justice. He was appointed by President Johnson. Thurgood Marshall became the first African American to serve on the Supreme Court. He consistently supported strong protection of individual rights and liberal interpretations of social issues. For instance, in Roe v. Wade, Furman v. Georgia, and other cases, Marshall was part of the majority that ruled in favor of the right to abortion in Roe v. Wade, and articulated his opinion that the death penalty was unconstitutional in all circumstances in Furman v. Georgia. As the court became increasingly conservative, however, Marshall became an isolated liberal member and was largely relegated to issuing strongly worded dissents. After this, he retired from the Supreme Court in 1991 and was replaced by Justice Clarence Thomas.
So after his notable and very, very influential career, Thurgood Marshall died in 1993 at the age of 84. He had two sons with Cecilia Suyat, who went on to become prominent Supreme Court justices. This is just a little bit about Thurgood Marshall, who was a very prominent African-American Supreme Court justice and went on to influence the entire history of the Supreme Court all the way up until today. Thank you.
Jazakumullah khairan, gentlemen, for putting that together. Looking forward to the next ones coming for the rest of this month, inshallah. And Jazakumullah khairan, everyone, for joining us, and have a blessed day.